Okay, we're Maseches Shekalim. The boys at Baruch Hashem, we're getting ready to make another siyum. We'll see if we can finish Perek Zayin in Shekalim today, and then we'll pick up next week with Shekalim, and that would be the last Perek in Shekalim. And we will have had this chus to make a siyum on Midos, Tamid, and Shekalim. But first we have to finish. So we are in Maseches Shekalim, Perek Zayin. We learned Mishnah Dalet. We're going to read it quickly again today. It's page 57 of your Mishnayos. We're going to read it quickly because the next Mishnah, Mishnah Hey, follows up on Mishnah Dalet. Mishnah Dalet. Page 57 of your Mishnayos. Behema shenimtzis mirushalayim va'ad migdal eder. An animal. You find an animal in the street in Yerushalayim or from Yerushalayim until Migdal Eder. Migdal Eder was a city outside Yerushalayim. If you look at page 58, we took a look at it yesterday at the bottom of page 58, it's showing you a circle. Migdal Eder is to your right. And then if Migdal Eder, let's assume, is 10 miles from Yerushalayim, you draw a circle. And anywhere within 10 miles of Yerushalayim, that is the area which we call the Migdal Eder area around Yerushalayim. So a person's walking in the street in the Migdal Eder area, anywhere from Yerushalayim until Migdal Eder in that circle, he finds an animal roaming the streets, a kosher animal, the kind of kosher animal that would be kosher for a korban. There are obviously animals that can't be used for a korban. A deer can't be used for a korban. There are animals that are too old that can't be used for a korban. But he finds on the street an animal, a male animal or a female animal that could be a korban. An animal that's found between Yerushalayim and Migdal Eder, and that same measurement in any direction, which is what we discussed. If Migdal Eder is 10 miles from Yerushalayim, draw a circle to create an entire area called the Migdal Eder area around Yerushalayim. Zechorim, you find male animal. Again, as I mentioned yesterday, this is a very complicated sugya Masechta Kedushin. There's the issue here. Here, the Mishnah is just a summary. The Mishnah talks about male animals that are fit to be a korban and female animals that are fit to be a korban. But the Mishnah doesn't discuss the age of the animal, which could make all kinds of differences. And there are all different kinds of halachas, but that the Gemara in Kedushin delineates. Here we're getting just a general summary. Zechorim, you find in the street, the Migdal Eder circle, you find a male animal. Olos, you're going to be required to bring that animal to Yerushalayim and have it brought as a korban ola. Presumptively, an animal that's found in that area are going to be, if they're male, presumptively, it's going to have been was brought for an ola. The owner lost it, and therefore it has to be brought for an ola. Again, this creates a lot of complexities for many reasons. The Gemara in Kedushin deals with this. For example, the person finds the animal. He tries to locate the owner. He can't. He therefore goes to the Beis Hamikdash and says, Kohen, I found this in the Migdal Eder area. It's a male animal. It has to be brought as an ola. There is an issue here. The Kohen doesn't know who the owner is. Who is the owner of this animal? And when a korban is brought, we're taught in Masechtes Zvachim that one of the things that the Kohen has to know and has to concentrate on or think about is l'shem bailim. the offering has to be brought for the sake and in the name of the owner. We're not going to go into all the rules of lo l'shem bailim or l'shem bailim, but this raises an issue. So this is just a summary of the halacha. You find a male animal in the Migdal Eder zone around Yerushalayim. You bring it to the Beis Hamikdash, and it's going to be brought as a korban olah because most male animals in that area were presumptively lost by an owner who was on his way to Yerushalayim to bring it as an olah. The Kevos, you find a female animal in the Migdal Eder zone around Yerushalayim. Zivchei Shlomim. You bring it to the Beis Hamikdash, and it's going to be offered as a korban shlomim. Again, presumptively in that area, the animal was lost by an owner who was on his way to the Beis Hamikdash to bring a korban shlomim. Therefore, we will bring it as a korban shlomim. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Haroi l'psachim, psachim koydem l'regel shloshim yom. Rabbi Yehuda says if you find a goat or a sheep that is of the age and the specifications that could be a korban pesach, and it's within the 30 days before Pesach, he holds that we assume that such animal found in the Migdal Eder zone was brought towards Yerushalayim by an owner who was getting ready for Pesach and wanted to bring this animal. He designated this animal for korban Pesach, and he lost it. Therefore, when Erev Pesach comes, the finder of the animal who could not locate the owner, he can use that animal as his own korban Pesach. If he locates the owner after that, he pays the owner because he has personally benefited from having used that animal as his private korban Pesach, and he pays the owner the value of that animal. The first two cases, if you find a male animal in the Migdal Eder zone, you bring it to the Beis Hamikdash for an olah. You don't have to pay the owner anything if you find the owner afterwards, because the finder of the animal didn't have any personal benefit. He found the animal, brought it to the Beis Hamikdash, and it became a korban olah. In the second case, the finder found a female animal. He brings it to the Beis Hamikdash. They bring it as a korban shlomim. The finder of the animal did not have any personal benefit out of it. In Rabbi Yehuda's case, the finder has a personal benefit. Instead of going out and buying his own korban pesach, he used the korban pesach that he found. If he now locates the owner after Pesach, he now has to pay him because he personally benefited from the animal. That's the Mishnah. We do not paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. We go back to the simple rules. If it's a goat, if it's a sheep, male, female, the original rules of the Mishnah of Ola versus Shlom. Be that as it may, that's the rule of the Mishnah. We now have an issue that's going to be dealt with in the next Mishnah, Mishnah Hey, the new Mishnah for today. When you bring a korban olah or you bring a korban shlomim, besides the animal that's brought, there's also going to be nesachim. There's going to be the flour offering, the oil, the wine that's brought with it. Who is going to pay for all these additional things? You cannot just bring a korban olah without the wine. You cannot bring a korban shlomim without the wine to be poured on the mizbech. It is possible for the opposite to happen, as we learned in Masech Tamid. It is possible that a person can donate nesachim. He can donate wine to be poured on the mizbeach, but you cannot. An olah requires the wine. If a person brings a personal olah, he must bring wine to pour on the mizbeach. Same thing with a shlom. Now, this person found a male animal in the Migdal Eder zone, or he found a female animal in the Migdal Eder zone. If it's a male, we're going to bring it as an olah. If it's a shlom, we're going to bring it as a shlom. A female, we're going to bring it as a shlom. Who's going to pay for everything else that goes along with the korban? As an example, the wine. Where we get the wine from? So the Mishnah says, very interesting rule. Barishona, page 58, Shekalim Perek Zayin, Mishnah Hey, Barishona, initially, Hayumamashkinin Esmotza Eha. The person who found the animal, he would bring it to the Beis HaMikdash and say, I found this animal. It's a male Ola. It's a female Shlomim. And they would say to the finder, Mazel Tov, thank you very much. Now you are required to pay for the wine for the Nesachim. That came as a shock to a lot of people. They found an animal in the Migdal Eder zone. They did what any good citizen would do. The halacha says, bring it to the Beis HaMikdash. They brought it to the Beis HaMikdash because they found it in the Migdal Eder zone. And the Kohen says, oh, it's a male. We're going to use it as an Ola. And by the way, where's the wine? I said, where's the wine? What do you want from me? I found it. He had to pay for the wine. The Mishnah says, the initial rule was that the person who had the mazel to find the animal, and he was the good citizen who brought it to the Beis HaMikdash to the Kohen, if he didn't pay for the oil, Mamashkinin, Beis Din would send someone to the finder's home and take something from his home and either sell it to pay for the oil or wait till he reclaims his object by paying for the oil. They would take a mashkin. They would take collateral until the finder paid for the oil. Now we can understand, until the finder brings the nesachim. We can understand that this rule wouldn't work very long, because if someone found an animal in the Migdal Eder zone, he would simply walk away from it, because word got out, if you take it to the Beis HaMikdash, you're going to have to pay for the nesachim. If you don't pay, they're going to come into your house and take collateral till you pay. The situation became that people that saw animals in the Migdal Eder zone walking the streets, they wouldn't even touch it. If they bring it to the Beis HaMikdash, they're going to have to pay for the wine. So that situation couldn't continue. Hiskinu Beis Din, so Beis Din made a takana, shu nesacher bo mishal tzibur. You can bring, the finder brings the animal to the Beis HaMikdash. Male is an Ola, female is Shlomim, and the Beis HaMikdash, from its Trumas Halishka, right? We learned about the Trumas Halishka earlier in the Masechta, the money that's collected, the Machzis HaShekel that's collected from every Yid, and that is stored in that treasury room. We learned about how money is removed from the treasury room. The takana became, if a person comes to the Beis HaMikdash and says, I found this animal in the Migdal Eder zone, that the Beis HaMikdash, through the Machzis HaShekel, would pay for the nesachim of that kind of animal. Otherwise, people wouldn't bring the animal to the Beis HaMikdash at all. So that was a takana of Beis Din, that the Machzis HaShekel would be used to pay for those kind of nesachim. That's one of 7 takanas that we're going to learn about. The Mishnah Vav continues about these kind of takanos, these kind of rules that Beis Din made that affects the ongoing karbonos in the Beis HaMikdash. There are 7 of them. This is the first one. The first of the 7 takanos is a person that found an animal in the Migdal Eder zone. He brings it to the Beis HaMikdash, and the Machzis HaShekel will pay for the wine. Mishnah Vav. Amar Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon said, Shiva Devarim Hiskinu Beis Din. Beis Din made 7 takanas. They made 7 rules to remedy or fix a situation. V'zeh echad mehem. And this rule that the Machzis HaShekel will pay for the wine for animals that were found in the Migdal Eder zone is one of the 7. The Mishnah is now going to list the other 6. Next, number 2. Nachri sheshilach elosai mebedinas hayam. A guy sent a carbon ola. We know we learned it in the first parak of Shekalim, which comes from the psukim in Pashas Vayikra, that a guy can bring a carbon in the Beis Hamikdash. So you have a guy, he can only bring, according to the way we paskin, there's machlekes actually, but the way that we assumed when we learned the earlier Mishnayos is that a guy can bring a carbon nedarim or a carbon nedava, meaning something that you can donate, a guy can bring. Something that is an obligation, a guy cannot bring. A carbon pesach, you do by obligation, not voluntarily. A guy can't bring a carbon pesach to the Beis Hamikdash. A carbon chatas is something you have to bring. You don't wake up one morning and say, I'd like to bring a carbon chatas. You can't do that. You have to have the predicate, the halachic predicate that you did something under circumstances that require a carbon chatas. Otherwise, you're not allowed to bring a carbon chatas. It's chulin bazar. A guy can't bring a carbon chatas. There is a machlekes, but we're going to go forward. Simple. A guy can't bring a carbon chatas because it's an obligation. You can't volunteer to donate a carbon chatas. The difference between a neder and a dava is not nogeya. A neder basically is a person says, Hare alai, I will bring a carbon nedava. I will bring a carbon ola. I will bring a carbon ola. That's a neder. A nedava means that this animal in front of me shall be a carbon ola. The difference between the two is the language. When a person says, I will bring a carbon ola, the obligation is on him. If he then goes to the marketplace and buys an animal to fulfill that neder, and the animal dies before it can be brought on the mizbeach, that person has to go out and buy another animal. What were his words? I will bring an ola. And until he brings the ola, the neder is not satisfied. On the other hand, if a person says, this animal in front of me will be an ola, he didn't take any obligation upon himself. He merely said that this animal will be an ola. So he brings it to the Beis Hamikdash. If it dies before they're able to bring it as an ola, he's not responsible to buy another one because he didn't say, I will bring an ola, which is a neder. He said, this animal is an ola. That's a nedava. Okay, enough for neder and nedava. A guy can make a neder on nedava, meaning he can say, I will bring an ola, or you can say, this animal will be an ola. Okay, so the guy lives outside Eretz Yisrael for simplistic pshat. The reason why it says outside Eretz Yisrael is because in those days there weren't many goyim living in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore when I talk about the day's particular Mishnayos, the Mishnah is talking about in that time frame when the Beis Hamikdash was standing. Most goyim lived outside Eretz Yisrael. They didn't live in Eretz Yisrael, so it's a common case. A guy from Chutz La'aretz, he sends a messenger with his animal, and he says, the messenger comes to the Beis Hamikdash and says, guy so-and-so would like this brought as an ola. V'shilach ima nesachim. And the guy knew that you can't just send an ola, you have to send wine, or you have to send actually money for wine. And here is, we're going to go back to our rule that we learned about. When we say here that the guy sent nesachim, it doesn't mean he sent wine. Where is this guy? The Mishnah says, Nachri sheshilach oilosem memedinas hayom. A guy sent his ola from Chutz La'aretz. V'shilach ima nesachim. And with it he sent the wine to pour in the mizbeach. It cannot mean the wine. It means he sent money to buy the wine. Why? Because if you remember, we learned weeks ago The Mishnah in Nazir is a gezeira on Eretz Ha'amim of Tumah. Anything that's outside Chutz La'aretz, wine, people, they are tamei. Chachamim will geyser that if a person goes outside the borders of Eretz Yisrael, he has rabbinic tumah, and that has many, many, many ramifications. We learned about it in the context of the rules of Nazir. When we were talking about Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, we learned about Nazir. Mishnah in Nazir, Machlokes Beishamai Beis Hillel, a person in Chutz La'aretz, he says, I'm going to be a Nazir, Stam Naziris Lamed Yom. If a person says, I'll be a Nazir, without saying how long, it means 30 days. Okay, and then after the 30 days, he goes to Eretz Yisrael, he has to start his Naziris again for 30 days. The Naziris in Chutz La'aretz does not fulfill his obligation because a Nazir is not allowed to become Tameh. And he kept 30 days of Naziris outside Eretz Yisrael, and outside the borders of Eretz Yisrael is inherently Tumah. It's Tumas Eretz Ha'amim. So a guy sends an animal to Eretz Yisrael, to the Beis HaMikdash, for an olah. That's fine. A living animal cannot become tameh. And with it, the Mishnah says, he sends his nesachim. It doesn't mean he sent the wine because he couldn't use that wine on the mizbeach because it's tameh. Means he sent money. And the money is going to be used to buy the wine. Kreva Mishalom. Obviously, it's a simple case. He sent the animal, he sent money for the wine. There's no problem or issue in the Beis HaMikdash. They will bring the olah, they will use the money for the wine. Gamarnu ha'esek. But what happens if the guy sent the animal and didn't send money to pay for the wine? What do we do now with this animal? Same thing. Chachamim made a takana. We're going to bring the animal as an olah, Kraven Mishel Tzibur, and we're going to use Machtas HaShekel money, and we're going to pay for the wine to go with this korban olah. Special takana that Chachamim made to be able to bring this korban. So that's two. The first takana was animal found within the Migdal Eder zone, and the fine that brings it to the Beis HaMikdash, the Machtas HaShekel type money will pay for the wine. Second, a guy sends his korban olah from Chutz La'aretz, and he didn't send money for the wine. The Machtas HaShekel type money will pay for the wine for this guy's korban. V'chein ger, number three, the third takana. V'chein ger shemes v'hiniach sevachim. A ger died, and the ger did not marry, so he has no he has no relatives, he has no brothers and sisters, and even if he had brothers and sisters that converted with him, they, for all practical halachic purposes, except for certain halachas, they're no longer related. Gershon is gaya katan shenayla dami. The rule is that a ger, a person that converts, it's as if he was born, it's a new person, and whatever was, and now he starts completely fresh. So he doesn't have relatives unless he married and has children. But if a ger doesn't marry and he dies, he has no relatives. Who owns everything that he left behind, his possessions? Who is the Yoresh? The halacha is everything that belonged to the ger who died without children, all of his possessions are hefker. They don't belong to anybody. Somebody, whoever goes into his house after he dies, he has no Yorshim. You can take his candelabra, you can take his watch, whatever you take, you take. There's nobody for the Yerusha. So therefore, you have now a case where a ger died without Yorshim. He left behind certain animals that we know were designated to bring korbanos. Im yesh lo nesachim, if the ger also left the money for the wine, Kraven Mishalo, no problem. You bring the animals as appropriate korban, and you have the wine to bring. Vim lav. What happens if we can only find the animals, but he didn't leave the money or the wine to bring with the carbon? Craven mishal tzibur. The machtes hashekel type money will pay for this so that the karbonis can be brought for this ger. So now we have 3 takanas in the Beis Hamikdash, that in the event that a circumstance arises where we don't have the wine to bring for the carbon, the machtes hashekel will pay for it. 1, finding an animal in Migdal Eder zone. 2, a goy sends his ola from Chutz La'aretz. 3, a ger that died without Yarshim. These cases, if we don't have the wine, the machtes hashekel will pay for it. Utnai Beis Din hu, and there was also a Tanai Beis Din, another takana that Beis Din made, but this is a Tanai. They made a condition. This is an operational condition of how the Beis Hamikdash is going to work. And this is what they did. We learned in Maseches Tamid about the Kohen Gadol's daily minchas chavitim. Daily, every day, the Kohen Gadol, and he paid for it, the Kohen Gadol. He brought a certain amount of flour, and this flour was baked in the morning into 12 type of challahs, not the challahs that we think of when we talk about the Shabbos table, but a special type of baked challah, minchas chavitim. And this Kohen Gadol, what he had to do, like every Kohen Gadol, 6 of these challahs were consumed on the Mizbeach in the morning with the korban during the time of the korban Tamid Shel Shachar. And 6 of these challahs were consumed on the Mizbeach in the afternoon during the time of the korban Tamid Shel Bein Habayim. Case that the Mishnah is discussing now. The Kohen Gadol brings to the Beis Hamikdash his flour for the day. They bake 12 challahs. 6 are burnt in the morning on the Mizbeach. Before the afternoon comes where they can burn the remaining 6, the Kohen Gadol dies. Now, first of all, we have a question. What do we do with the 6 remaining challahs that were baked for this Kohen Gadol, but he died? Can we use them in the afternoon? The answer is no. You're not alive. You can't use his carbon if he's not alive. That's the rule. And we leave these challahs out until the next day. They become noser, they're going to be burnt. Okay. What happens if we can't, for whatever reason, we don't have a Kohen Gadol to appoint for the rest of the day? And maybe it takes multiple days. And maybe it takes multiple weeks until we can appoint a new Kohen Gadol, until we find the one we want, etc. Whatever the case is. It takes time, a day, 2, a week, a month, until we can appoint a Kohen Gadol. What do we do? So the Mishnah says, Utnai Beis Din hu, there was a condition made by Beis Din, Al Kohen Gadol shemeis, shetehei minchaso kreva mishal tzibur. A Kohen Gadol that died, that the machtes hashekel is going to pay for the minchas chavitim. The minchas chavitim needs to be brought every day. The Kohen died. Who is going to pay for the daily minchas chavitim? So if he died between the morning and the night, we used his 6 challahs in the morning. At night, we can't use the ones he paid for and that were baked while he was alive because he's died since then. So we don't use those. So the machtes hashekel money is going to be used, and we're going to buy flour, and that afternoon we're going to bring the minchas chavitim. But here's a little interesting fact we learn out from a pasuk, that the minchas chavitim that's going to be brought in the afternoon is not going to be 6. It's going to be 12 challahs. So what happened that day is the Kohen Gadol was alive in the morning. He brought the flour. They baked 12 challahs. They burned 6 in the morning while he was alive. He died in the afternoon before the Korban Tamid Shel Bein Abayim. The remaining 6 that were baked for him.
No sound. No sound. We don't hear.
How are we now?
Okay. We're good.
Okay, Baruch Hashem. I don't know what I did or I figured that out because I don't know anything about computers, but we're okay, Baruch Hashem. So Kohen Gadol in the morning brought his flour at his own expense. That's the rule. He brought the flour to the Beis Hamikdash. They baked the 12 challahs. 6 will be brought in the morning and consumed on the Mizbeach. 6 will be brought in the afternoon with the Korban Tamid Shel Bein Abayim. Unfortunately, he dies in the afternoon or in the morning. After the 6 of the morning are brought and before the 6 of the afternoon can be brought, he dies. We cannot use the 6 that were baked for him, specifically for him, because there is no him anymore. He died. So the remaining 6 challahs for the afternoon will be left overnight. They will become noser, quote unquote, left over, and they will be burned the next day. But we need to bring Minchas Chavita. How are we going to do that? We don't have another Kohen Gadol yet. We haven't appointed him that day, that week, that month. What do? So step 1. The day the Kohen Gadol died, the 6 leftover challahs for the afternoon will not be used. They'll be burned the next day. We're going to take money. We'll see where we get it from. We're going to take money and we're going to buy flour to bake 12 challahs. And those 12 challahs will be burnt on the Mizbeach in the afternoon. Meaning that so long as a Kohen Gadol is alive, we bake 12 challahs in the morning, and we burn 6 in the morning and 6 in the afternoon. If the Kohen Gadol dies, until the Kohen Gadol a new Kohen Gadol is appointed, we bake 12, and all 12 are brought in the morning. We bake another 12, and a full 12 are brought again in the afternoon. This is learned out of a pasuk. So in the case on that day when the Kohen Gadol died, 6 were burnt in the morning that he paid for. He then died. The 6 that were baked for the afternoon will be burnt the next day because we can't use them. We're going to get money from somewhere, which we'll see in the Mishnah, to bake 12 new challahs and bring it the afternoon on the day the Kohen Gadol died. Until we appoint a new Kohen Gadol, every morning there'll be 12 challahs, not 6, and every afternoon there'll be 12 challahs, not 6. But who's going to pay for all these challahs, 12 in the morning, 12 in the afternoon, all this flour? Who's going to pay for all this until we appoint a new Kohen Gadol? Back to the Mishnah. Utnai Beis who al Kohen Gadol shemes. The Beis Din made a Tanai for the operation of the Beis Hamikdash, that a Kohen Gadol that dies, shetehei minchas kreva mishel tzibur. We're going to take Machzas HaShekel money and we're going to pay for the 12 morning challahs and the 12 afternoon challahs until we appoint a new Kohen Gadol. Now that can get pretty expensive, but that's what we do. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, the rule that you said is correct. While after the Kohen Gadol dies and until a new Kohen Gadol is appointed, we do 12 challahs in the morning on the Mizbeach, 12 challahs in the afternoon on the Mizbeach, not the 6 in the morning, 6 in the afternoon, 12 morning, 12 night. I absolutely agree with you, Rabbi Yehuda says. But it's not going to be paid for by the Maseches HaShekel. It's Mishel Yorshim. It's the Yorshim of the Kohen Gadol, his inheritors, those who inherit him. They'll have to take money out of the Yerusha and continue paying for the Minchas Chavitin, but not 6 in the morning, 6 in the afternoon. It's 12 in the morning and 12 in the afternoon. So there's no machlokes about after the Kohen Gadol dies and until the replacement is appointed. It's 12 in the morning, 12 in the afternoon, not 6 and 6. Everyone agrees to that. The first opinion of the Mishnah is the 12 and 12 until the appointment of a new Kohen Gadol when we go back to 6 and 6. But the 12 and 12 are paid for by the Maseches HaShekel. Rabbi Yehuda says no, the Yorshim of the Kohen Gadol pay for the 12 in the morning, 12 in the afternoon until a new Kohen Gadol is appointed. Ushleima haisa kreva. And the last words of the Mishnah is what we just said. Shleima means complete. All 12 are brought in the morning. All 12 are brought in the afternoon until a new Kohen Gadol is appointed. So that is not a difference of opinion. Everyone holds that way. When there's no Kohen Gadol, 12 in the morning, 12 in the afternoon, who pays for it is where there's a difference of opinion. The first Tana said the Maseches HaShekel pays for it. Rabbi Yehuda says the Yorshim pay for it. Okay, so that is our Mishnah Shekalim for the day. We have one more Mishnah to do in Perek Zayin, which is Mishnah Zayin. We haven't gone through all the 7 takonos. Remember, we said there are going to be 7 takonos they made in the Beis Hamikdash. How many do we have? You find an animal in the Migdal Eder zone, the Maseches HaShekel is going to pay for the wine. A guy sends his carbon ola from Chutz La'aretz. He didn't send the money for the wine. The Maseches HaShekel will pay for the wine. A ger died with any Yorshim and he left behind karbonis. If he didn't leave behind the money or the wine, the Maseches HaShekel is going to pay for the wine. So we have the Migdal Eder zone, we have the goy, we have the ger. The last case that we did today is the Tanai Beis Din about the who pays for the Minchas Chavit and the Kohen Gadol after he dies and until someone is appointed. So right now we only have 4. Means we're missing 3 more takanas, and those last 3 takanas are in Mishnah Zayin. Okay, so we learned 4 of the 7 takanas about what you can use and what you need to pay for inside the Beis Hamikdash when different circumstances come up.